Good evening and welcome to Conversations with the Candidates on Houston Media Source TV. I'm Gene Preuss with the League of Women Voters, and tonight we're very happy to have 10 candidates for the special election for Texas House District 148. We're going to ask some questions, learn a little bit more about them, their stance on a few issues, and how they plan on addressing some of the issues that affect our city in Houston and the district at large. I'd like to welcome you all to Conversations with the Candidates. Thank you for coming. And for the League of Women Voters of the Houston area, we know that you've had some questionnaires that you filled out. These questions are going to be a little bit different, but we're going to go ahead and start with you on the first question, Mr. Adrian Garcia. Would you tell us about yourself and why you're running for District 148?
Sure. Thank you for having us. Howdy everyone, my name is Adrian Garcia and I'm running to represent House District 148. I am a young community organizer and a family law case manager. As a proud son of immigrants and a product of public education, I am running to continue to fight for families that represent families like mine. Walking around the district, a lot of the issues that I see are the same issues that affect other families in the district and affect my family. I'm asking for your vote and I'm asking for your support in this election. I hope you'd consider voting for me November 5th.
Thank you very much. Rob Block, the same question. Why are you running?
Hi, my name is Rob Block. I'm a Houston firefighter. I live in the near north side and I'm running for House District 148. I've been an activist, a community organizer, and a social worker. And House District 148 is really facing pressures of stagnant wages and rising property values. There's also a lot of public projects that are being developed that aren't really listening to residents. So those are issues that sort of made me want to run for this seat. And I think the diverse sets of experiences, the different types of work that I've done really make me a good candidate and is why I'm running and would love to represent District 148.
Thank you very much. Carol Denson, tell us about yourself and why you're running.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Carol Denson. I'm running for state representative for Texas House District 148. I was born in Heights Hospital and grew up in the pre-gentrified Heights. I went to Rice University for undergrad and University of Houston for graduate school. And since then, I've been a teacher. So for over 2 decades, I've been a teacher. 1 decade of that was as a classroom teacher in a bilingual classroom, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders. And through that, I came to know both the pressures and the stress and the academic cost of the STAR test, as well as the fear that children feel during lockdowns. On the other hand, I got to know firsthand the character and integrity of our immigrant families, as well as the brilliant potential of the children. I think since the state legislature makes the rules that teachers and students have to follow, that there should be teachers in the state legislature. But that is not really why I decided to run. I decided to run because I've also been a volunteer climate advocate for sensible climate legislation for the last 7 years. And I'm dismayed by the refusal of our elected leaders to act. And so I thought, well, I'll just go write the legislation and work for its passage myself. So as a candidate for Senate recently said, if she gets elected to the Senate and can only pass one bill, what would it be? And she said climate, because everything else is like cleaning the windows on a bus that's going off a cliff. I agree with her, and if you do too, I would appreciate your vote for Carol Denson on November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Terah Isaacson.
Hi, I'm Terah Isaacson. I'm a colorectal surgeon, and that means in about 60 seconds or less, I typically have to relate people and get them to tell me things that they don't even share with their spouse. I've learned to really, truly listen. And I believe that my experience uniquely positions me to get at our true joys and fears that will be the foundation for meaningful policy to move Texas forward. I came to this city for work, like so many others, a little over 8 years ago. My husband and I have made near North Side our home for the last 7 years, choosing to live there for affordability, access to the Metro Rail, and bike lanes. I grew up uninsured until the age of 7 when my father obtained steady employment with UPS and representation with the Teamsters Union. It was this stability that gave me the base to work hard and achieve things that no one in my family had done previously. I was the recipient of free school lunches and college tuition through federal grants. These, along with having a sibling with major medical issues at birth, brought me into the medical field. Health and socioeconomic impacts of this are the top concerns, if not the highest, for House District 148. My family and I are actually currently part of the statistics of uninsured people in the state. Hard to believe? No, just ask a small business owner and see how much they pay for health insurance. It's not just all about Medicaid expansion. The complexity of coverage and of access is something that I deal with every day and will make me poised to create meaningful change for all residents of House District 148. I have the compassion and empathy of a mother, but the grit and resilience of a female surgeon. I look forward to using those qualities to represent House District 148 and take into account every one of the citizens.
Thank you very much. Michele Leal, we'll go to you next. Why are you running for District 148?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Michele Leal, and I am running for House District 148 because I am a third-generation Houstonian who's lived most of my life in House District 148. I come from a family with a long legacy of public and community service, and I've always worked to continue that legacy through public sector and nonprofit sector leadership, volunteerism, and civic engagement. And I think that these roles and that experience, and also having worked in the legislature, is a natural segue to serving in public office. And I seek to represent House District 148 because I believe I have the experience and the qualifications as well as the passion for service to the community.
Thank you very much. Maya Mundy.
Thank you so much for having us this evening. My name is Maya Mundy, and I'm running for Texas House District 148. The reasons why I'm running is I'm kind of an individual who sees myself as a constituent first. Don't really see myself as a traditional politician. And so what I mean by that is, as I've lived in the district, there's been certain instances that have come to my family that have either set us back or displaced us, or our rights haven't been fought for, or things have been too close to call, like a 13-year-old dying in the intersection of 4000 and Yale in the last year, just at a block party hanging out with friends. And so being in the district, there's a lot of concerns that I see, and I definitely have the kind of personality that I'm just not going to sit on the sidelines and wait for somebody else to put my voice at the table. And so I'm primarily running in this race because I want to champion equity, but I believe the only way you can do that is by mitigating privilege. And there's a lot of privileges in the world. And so this campaign is rooted firmly in the strength that to move the district forward, we have to champion equity by mitigating privilege. I've been displaced twice in the district due to gentrification. That's a focus area for me. I'm a proud pansexual African-American woman. I got engaged to my fiance in July. She's a wonderful woman. And there's rights and things and ways we want to build a family in Texas that are really at risk, that I believe that voice needs to be louder at the table. And I've mentioned the sensible gun law desire, not just because of the child that was lost at the end of last year, but in the state and the shootings we've had in the last 2 months, the time is now. And it's something that both sides are coming to the table, and it's time for red flag laws, it's time for braid laws, it's time to make sure that we are putting the safety of everyone first and foremost. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running for Texas House District 148.
Thank you very much. Next, Penny Morales-Shaw.
Thank you, Jean. As an attorney of 19 years in the courtroom, either representing entrepreneurs with compliance issues or employees who've been discriminated against, working on humanitarian or civil liberty laws, I gained a deep understanding of how much our rights are tied into laws. They're rooted in laws. And when people have a problem with their rights, it leads them to the doorsteps of lawmakers. And as a legislator, my job will be to make sure that I pass just and fair laws that address everyone's need, every person's needs, and their changing needs. Not the elite, not special interests, not a small group, but the people that are going to employ me. Women in government is another reason. We make up 50% of the population. We currently only represent about 20% of the legislature. I believe the more women that get involved in government, the more we will realize equality, pay parity, and our right to access to health. I'm a resident of Garden Oaks, so I'm in the center of District 148, but we live in a very diverse district, and I plan to understand and to continue to serve that very diverse and mixed need from the west side of District 148 all the way to the east side, the north side.
Okay, thank you very much. Chris Watt.
Thank you, Gene, and thanks to the Houston League of Women Voters for having us tonight, and thanks to everybody at home and online for tuning in. My name's Chris Watt. My wife, Susanna, and I have been residents of District 148 for the last 17 years. It's the only home our 12-year-old son's ever known. I am a lawyer by day, but I've been passionate about government and politics for as long as I can remember. I'm one of those people who still believes that government is a place where people can come together and can truly make a positive difference in the lives of others. I currently serve on the Houston Leadership Committee for Lambda Legal. Lambda Legal is an organization that's devoted to securing and protecting equal rights for all members of our LGBTQ community. I was the first ally asked to serve on that committee. Recently, I also just completed my term as the chairman of the board for Children at Risk. A lot of folks know Children at Risk, but one of the things we do is we go to Austin and we advocate for legislation to improve the lives of Texas children. That's given me the opportunity to be up in session the last couple of sessions to fight for a lot of the reforms we saw in the last education bill. I want to take my passion, my experience, and my skills to Austin to fight for the district residents of District 148 and all Texans to improve public education for our kids, to enact common sense gun policy, to increase access to health care, particularly to protect and secure women's rights to reproductive health care, and to fight for equality for all Texans. And that's why I'm asking for your support on November 5th so I can be the next Texas representative for District 148. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Anna Eastman, why are you running for District 148?
Thank you, Gene, and to the League of Women Voters. I'm Anna Eastman, and I'm running for House District 148 because I believe I would make a great representative in Austin. I had the honor of serving as an elected representative for 75% of the district as an elected school board trustee. My family has lived in House District 148 for 21 years. My husband Brad and I raised our children here. I worked as a volunteer in the public schools before I was elected to office, and in a variety of other organizations that focused on adolescent sexual health, the arts, and the LGBT community. I have a track record of passing policies that were not always popular, but were able to be passed with a unanimous vote in a sometimes contentious body, and I believe I can bring those skills as well as my ability to interact with and listen to the residents of the district. That's why I'd like your vote as representative for House District 148 on November 5th.
Thank you very much. And finally, Chris Carmona.
Hi, Gene. Thank you for having us tonight. Again, my name is Chris Carmona, and I am running for this seat because 5 years ago I ran for this position because there were still problems we have today, and I think everybody's expressed them. But no one stepped up five years ago. No one stepped up 3 years ago. So imaginary, everybody, all of a sudden, the problems exist today. We still have the highest poverty rate across the state of Texas at 26%. State average is roughly 9% less than that. Public education is still in shambles. Still dilapidated houses. Still opportunity zones and within the district need to be given attention. And crime continues to increase. Gun laws are a mess. Everything's been a mess for the last 5 years, and no one stepped up to it. Everyone's scared of the incumbent, and I guess now that she decided to step away, everybody wants to hop into this race and make things better. Yay! But again, I look forward to this campaign, and I look forward to representing the people of 148 in Austin. I've been in Austin the last few sessions, working either as a general counsel or as an outside consultant. I've been in Washington doing the same thing. So when it comes to passing legislation and getting things done, I have the resume to be able to do that. As a 10-year attorney who practices civil litigation and family law, I understand how the laws we actually pass and make affect people, everyday people at the courthouse. So my man over with caseworker, family work, I'm with CPS. We're gonna have some talks later about that as well. But thank you again. Go to chriscarmona.com for more information.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carmona. I'm going to start with you on the next set of questions, and we have let you talk a little bit about some of the issues that may have spurred you to run. So the next question is, what do you think is one of the most important issues for District 148 in the Texas House, and if elected, what steps are you going to take to address those issues?
Absolutely, and to narrow it down to this one is impossible, because if you go block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood, each area has a different focus of what is important to them. But one thing that is consistent and constant throughout the district is these mass shootings. And it's one of those issues that at some point, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you have to come together and say things aren't working now. Families deserve better. Children deserve better. I have 2 daughters in the public school system. And when I send them to school every day, I expect them to come home safe and sound. And every family expects the same thing. And so when we're failing to provide that security for our children because we're failing in Austin, that's a problem. And it's not a problem that just arose overnight. Another thing that's a huge problem in this district is that of, the infrastructure, flooding, another huge issue. We can't blame it on the city of Houston over and over again, because the state has some obligation to make sure our areas are taken care of. We're funding it. We're putting the proper programs in place to make sure we don't have failing infrastructure to where people are stranded, people are losing their homes. And the other thing is public education. Again, I have 2 daughters in public schools. I'm a product of the public schools. To just sit there and say that it's okay and acceptable to continue to have these failing schools, we can't continue to do that. Our families deserve more. Parents and the children of District 148, they deserve more. And when I'm elected into Austin, I'll make sure that we are advocating for those changes to make sure we have successful families to build better neighborhoods and better communities, not just for District 148, but all of Texas. You can go to chriscarmona.com for more information.
Thank you very much. Anna Eastman, how would you answer that? What is the most important issue that you see, and how are you going to address it if you're elected?
So again, like Chris said, one issue is really hard to narrow down to. But my biggest motivator to run for this position was what I learned as a school board trustee, how the state can both support and promote progress in our public schools and hinder it. And last session, the legislature made great strides in passing House Bill 3, where they made a huge investment into our public schools. It was the first time in many years that the state actually invested money on their part into the public school system. Now, they also did a tax compression, and we need to make sure in the next session that we have ongoing sustainable funding for those increases to our basic student allotment. I am also a big believer in making sure that our investment actually matters for kids. Only 13% of low-income kids in Harris County complete any kind of post K-12, 2, 4, or certificate program, and that's unacceptable to me. So I believe in the investment, which makes sure we pay our teachers a professional wage and our schools have access to resources to provide a full, well-rounded educational experience for our kids, but it actually gives our kids the tools to access their future. That said, I know public education does not happen in a vacuum, and we need to ensure our families have access to health care, both through Medicaid expansion, but making sure that those who are insured can actually afford the plans available to them. And I'm also a big believer in sensible gun legislation. I believe we need to close background check loopholes, red flag laws, and limit or actually ban assault weapons in Texas. And so those are things that I would focus on right away. I think we have the opportunity to continue the conversation that's been happening and actually pass legislation to make a difference in the residents of House District 148's lives now.
Thank you very much. Mr. Watt.
Gene, I'd start with gun policy. I think we all recognize that gun violence is a huge issue not only in the United States, but it came home to roost here recently in Odessa and in El Paso. And because of that, we're starting to see some actual conversation, some actual movement in this area. And I think now is the time we've got to capitalize on that. We've got to go to Austin, and we've got to reach across the aisle, and we've got to get our Republican colleagues to come in and finally pass full background checks, universal background checks for everyone, red flag laws, assault weapon bans, and I would add licensing to that as well. If you look at the statistics on each one of those issues, there is an overwhelming majority of support for every single one of those things. There is absolutely no reason whatsoever why we shouldn't be able to pass all 4 of those pieces of legislation. The only reason has been the NRA. But with organizations out there now like Moms Demand Action and other folks who are coming up to the table and making their voices heard, I think now is the time to get those things passed. For me, the second important issue is going to be public education. You know, former trustee Eastman mentioned our efforts this past session. We did get some good things done. I actually had the opportunity to testify in front of the Senate Education Committee on the importance of early childhood education, but in my opinion, we didn't go far enough. What we were able to do is we were able to secure full-day, high-quality pre-K for all of our economically disadvantaged students. We have to expand that to universal pre-K for all of our kids, and then I want to see us implement pre-K 3 for our economically disadvantaged students, because the statistics show us that 90% of brain development occurs between the ages of 0 and 4 years old. And the statistics also show us that kids aren't reading on grade level by 3rd grade have a much higher incidence of dropout and incarceration. If we're not laser focused on early childhood education, we're missing our greatest opportunity to improve education for all Texans. And those are some of the things I'm going to focus on when I get to Austin. Thank you very much.
Next, we'll go to Penny Morales-Shaw, and same question. What are the most important issues that you see?
Again, there isn't one issue, but flooding and environment, flooding is an immediate threat to our homes, our businesses, that's our livelihood and our shelter, which are very basic human needs. We have models in our government that haven't worked. We are a flood town. We've been fighting flooding for over 100 years. We've been funding projects for over 100 years. I think we need to seriously revisit our models, whether they're federal or state level, and both of those intertwine and work closely together to make sure that the federal dollars are spent equitably, because there are models in place right now that are clearly inequitable, and the funds are not spent in a comprehensive watershed plan, but rather to the most expensive areas, because that's the quote greatest return. I think that's a huge factor that we need to look at. But having said that, I don't want to underestimate access to health care, and all the intersectionality that comes with that, which is health care for our senior citizens, who many of them are on fixed income, or choice for Texans. We're about liberty and choice. We deserve choice in good, affordable, accessible, quality health care, women's rights to health care, and even legalizing medical marijuana. These are all intersections that come into having good health care. And expanding Medicaid. We are the most uninsured. That's probably been said already many times, but we lead in the nation in uninsured people, and that's a large percentage of those people are children. And which leads me to schools. Schools are huge. We do have a proposition that's being proposed for raising how much money GLOW, the General Land Office, makes available to the school fund, and by double. And that's exciting, because we need to save our schools. We need to keep them in local control, and we need to strengthen them and have robust community schools for our children, because not all families can afford to take their kid 5 to 10 miles away to a different school. Most people need that bus 1-2 mile away school that's also a community hub. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Mundy, the same question for you.
So I think it's a phenomenal question. I do agree with the sentiment that's said thus far. I don't think it's just one issue. And so I'm a very intersectional, holistic thinker. And so I come down to Maslow's hierarchy needs and just start with safety. So I do believe now is the time for sensible gun laws. Not only are there statistics that both sides of the table support, but Brady laws, red flag laws, even the aspect of, in this state specifically, closing how we do private sales and background checks, in my opinion, should be added to how the private sale goes down. That's just I believe that's a public safety issue. The gun issue in this country, to me, is a public safety issue, and it's time we start being accountable and responsible to that issue. The next thing I would say in regards to just intersections without the district that I have personal experience with is LGBTQ rights. And so previous session, they went a lot harder against that group in a not so positive way than they did this session. And I think that happened because they kind of got the force brought back against them. And so there's still a lot of individuals within this district and within our city that don't feel comfortable being themselves, that don't feel safe going certain places. You know, we do a lot of media during this campaign, and my fiance is not in a place of employment where she can be out and open. And so she's very concerned if something's heard over the media waves that may connect her to me, that she could lose her job. This is 2019, and in this district and in this city, that's a real threat to her safety. And then wrapping up, I would say affordable housing, specifically as it's due to gentrification. I've been displaced twice in the district, and now I'm in near North Side, and what I get to see now is, because I have a dual income home, is I get to watch other people that look like me, brown and black, be displaced all the time. And so there's a tipping point in gentrification that I do believe, whether it's municipal, federally, or even the state, more hands need to be at the table to really fight for equity there, because at the end of the day, if that equity is not fought for, you're just going to continue to displace people over and over again, and the getting set back continues to build upon and build upon and build upon.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Leal, what are some of the big issues, and what are you going to do to address them?
Thank you. You know, I think healthcare is a very critical issue for this district and for our entire state. I certainly know how access to care issues affect families in Texas every single day. I'm one of those people in one of those families, having a father who is now very, very sick and terminally ill, and all of that started with access to care issues. And for somebody who was both an elected official here in this county and a veteran, that should never happen, and it happens to way too many people every single day in our state. So I think that, you know, that's part of the reason that I worked in our safety net system in a community health clinic and worked on those issues, and I'm very familiar with how those community clinics can support our uninsured and underinsured communities. I also believe that, of course, we need to expand Texas Medicaid, and then we also need to expand the benefits that we provide for women under Texas Medicaid. The postpartum benefits right now don't adequately serve women for postpartum care, so I don't think that that's good enough, and I certainly think that we can do better. In terms of public education, I think it's critical. It's very important. I agree with everything that's been said thus far on public education, but I also think it's really important that we talk about the outside of classroom needs and how we can strengthen wraparound supportive services, because if kids aren't getting those needs met, and if they're dealing with food insecurity, and if they don't have access to maybe Spanish language books, and they don't have parents that can read in English, and they don't have, you know, adequate health care, if they don't have all of those other needs addressed, they are absolutely not going to learn, regardless of the quality of education that we're providing them. So I think that's extremely important. And certainly I would agree that gun violence is a critical issue facing our state and our country. And I think that we owe it particularly to the young people in this country to address it immediately. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So we'll go to Ms. Isaacson. What do you think is the most important issues, and how will you address them?
So being a physician, it's not going to be a surprise that I'm going to say health. And this means the health has how it affects all of us. Air quality. What does I-45 expansion look like for our neighborhoods and our schools? We need to have a strong voice in what this is going to look like and if it's going to happen. Food insecurity. The statistics behind the socioeconomic impacts of food insecurity show dramatic opportunities for cost savings if we include these in our healthcare evaluations. Mental health, we have to make this something that's a preventive care. Just like how your mammograms are covered, your annual mental health screening has to be covered as well. That all ties into gun violence. We have to get rid of the private sale loophole. You have to be able to restrict and you know, make sure that those private sales, wherever they happen, are getting the same approach. We have to make sure that the children are insured. We have to make sure that the women have health care. And we need transparency in health care. Healthcare should be no different than going and buying a new suit or a pair of shoes at the store. You need to understand that quality and transparency is huge in moving us out of our issue of being number one and uninsured. As I said, my family's uninsured, so we have to become very knowledgeable about where the prices are best. We need to make sure that drug companies understand that we know where the prices are different. Even if you have health insurance, you can go to GoodRx and find that Walgreens is going to be $20 more than Kroger's. This is real and impactful change that we can make right away in the legislature.
Thank you very much. Ms. Denson.
I would like to say that flooding is the most important issue. You know, I taught in a school last year through the program Writers in the Schools that the whole school had been displaced by flooding, and it was in an older, previously abandoned school. That's where the classes were. 75% of those kids' houses had flooded. So the academic cost of flooding was big in that school. It was really, really hard. So that's how flooding relates to schools. But climate change relates to all these issues, health, and as well, to most of the issues anyway. And regarding flooding, I want to say this thing. First of all, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. What I mean by that is we need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Research shows that Harvey had 38% more rainfall because the world was 1 degree warmer. We really need to stay under that 1.5 degrees, and it's exponential. That means if we get to 1.5 degrees, the flooding is going to be twice as bad as Harvey, like that kind of a scenario. So my prevention is I would work for a state-level carbon fee and dividend, which would be strong enough to reduce greenhouse gases emissions by 40% below 1990 levels within 12 years. That would keep us in line with the Paris Accords and would keep not only this district, but the world safe. But since we've already waited too long to address global warming, which we knew about in the 1980s, we should have acted decades ago, but when the science became clear. But I appreciate the 86th legislature for using $793 million to create a new flood funding program to be administered by the Texas Water Development Board. I think we need to use more of what is now the aptly named Rainy Day Fund to speed up, you know, people getting access to funds to rebuild after floods. Other than that, I agree that gentrification is an issue. I talked to Tony in Monty Beach this morning, and his yard no longer gets sun because he has a big house right next to it. So the article in the Chronicle about the loss of Independence Heights, like its character, I think that's very important, and I would work to create a heritage tax exemption to prevent the displacement of families. If you've owned a house for 50 years and you have a descendant, if your family has still living there, your taxes won't go up. So those are two of the issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rob Block.
So I agree with a lot of what's been said today. One thing that has not been talked about as much is wages and workers' rights. This is a district that has some wonderful and more affluent neighborhoods, but the per capita income in the district is under $30,000. The state minimum wage of $7.25 is way too low. You cannot support a family on that type of a wage. I'm the member of a labor union that's provided a lot of benefits and helped. We've struggled to raise our wages, and we appreciate the support of the voters in that. And that's an issue that is very important to people all across the district. So the last couple sessions, Austin is attacking workers' rights. They're attacking the right for public unions to deduct dues. They're attacking the ability of local governments to create things like paid sick leave. And so the legislature has been very hostile to the idea that hard work should be able to provide you with a dignified life. So I think that that's something that that I would like to fight for wages and benefits that you can raise a family on, and then the flip side of that is affordable housing. So in labor, so in addition to fighting for my own benefits, I've walked picket lines with steelworkers and with janitors who've been fighting for that. And then on the affordable housing side, I used to work for Avenue CDC, which is one of the best affordable housing developers in the city of Houston. So we definitely need to support and expand low-income housing tax credit properties that allow for a diversity of incomes to stay in neighborhoods. And we need to look at other things like land banks and home ownership preservation districts that they have in Austin but don't have in Houston, and a lot of different types of strategies to stop what the double whammy of stagnating wages and escalating property values.
Thank you very much. Mr. Garcia.
Hi. One of the most important issues, and I think I agree with everyone, everything's been said already, education. I am a product of public education. My high school has been labeled as an at-risk high school for over 20 years now, and it continues to be an at-risk high school today. I am the older sibling in my family. I have two siblings who are currently in public middle school. And so public education would be something that I'd like to see addressed, from investing more per capita per student to repealing standardized testing and stopping the ties to that tie to teacher pay raise and grade promotion, as well as repealing laws that allow the state takeover. I really do believe that we need to sit down with our elected officials here at home, and education needs to be a local control issue. Healthcare is one of the most important issues to myself, and I think to most of the families in this district. My mom is uninsured. I'm not able to carry my mom on my health insurance today. I'm able to carry my siblings, but walking around the district and hearing the stories of different families, it's the same story all across. We have a large number of uninsured children, not just in this district, but in the state. We don't provide enough access to low-income communities and to our undocumented community as well. And the other issue would be increasing home ownership. It's something that I really want to focus on. Walking around the district as well, I hear from everyone about how they get 3-4 calls a day about, hey, do you want to sell your home? And with flooding and everything else that our district faces, a lot of the families are already being displaced by the rising taxes, by the rising real estate prices, and by gentrification in our district. And how can we go to Austin if we're not able to keep a community in place because they're losing their homes? So those are the issues I want to focus on.
Okay, thank you very much. Very good. Thank you for answering that question. You're about, you're all running for legislature, so get used to people lying to you. So I lied to you earlier. I said we're going to have 2 minutes for this question, but we only have about 1 minute for this next question. So, yeah, fake promises. The legislature won't be back in session until 2021, and hate to show you how smart I am, but next year that means you're going to have an off year. So what are you going to do that first year? What do you plan on doing if elected to 148? What are you going to do the first year? We'll start back here with Mr. Garcia.
My primary focus, if elected or when elected in that one off year, would be focusing on civic engagement, making sure that I am an elected official that works for the people and by the people, that we're hosting community meetings. City elections are up, so there will probably be a lot of new faces in our city council. So we need to build connections with them, sit at the table with our HISD officials, and bring our youth and our next generation involved. By 2021, over 1/3 of our electorate will be under 30. So we need to make sure that we get them engaged, we get them involved. So we're hearing the issues that our district face, and that they know that they too can have a seat at the table. So civic engagement will be my number one focus in that off year.
Thank you very much. Rob.
I agree in part with Adrian. It's very important to get to know everything that I've been a part of that's been successful has been because a lot of people have come to the table and been involved, so that's very important. I would also want to continue the work that Representative Farrar did in hosting the Monster Mash at Mundy Park and also holding a back-to-school affair. One other thing that I would love to host would be an event. The district has a lot of labor unions in the district that have apprenticeship programs and have other research like Fe Justicia Worker Justice Center that teaches workers about their rights and helps them fight wage theft. I would love to have an event where we provide resources for folks who are looking for paid apprenticeship programs and are wanting to learn more about their worker rights and how to get good jobs and protect their rights.
Thank you. Carol, what would you do in this first off year if elected?
Well, I've been a school teacher, and I'm here to tell you right now that running for election is less challenging. It's less hard. The hours are long, but being a school teacher is really hard, and it taught me to work hard. So I promise that I will work hard. I will be on the phone the day after I'm elected, talking to all the other representatives in Texas to find the common ground and the shared values we need to address climate change. I also, as a teacher, I became a teacher because I love responding to the needs of a classroom, and similarly, I will be really responsive to my constituents. I would like to, work on stopping the I-45 expansion for one thing. I will be developing the bills so that I can hit the ground running in January when the session starts.
Thank you very much. Terah, what are you going to do in this first year if elected?
So a lot of people don't understand that the term special actually refers to the fact that you get to, on day one, have a budget about $14,000 a month of taxpayer money to spend. So over the next year, I would take that very seriously and spend that over $100,000 to create events everywhere. Reach out every Republican civic club, Democratic civic club, everyone that made an endorsement in this campaign. We would have listening tours, events. We would start a podcast. We would become heavily involved in 311. And we just need to ask. We need to figure out and get the most information from everyone in this district about what does 2021 session look for you. And we need to make this the most connected and engaged House District 148 that we've seen in years.
Very good. Michele, what are you going to do this first year if elected?
Well, I don't believe there's ever really an off year in public service and certainly in these positions. And a substantial part of this job is constituent services and community engagement, which I know well from having worked in this office during a session and also having done community-based work in the nonprofit sector for so many years. And that's exactly what I would spend that year doing, is constituent services and ensuring that we're bringing resources to constituents, to the community, and addressing the needs that are out there. And certainly listening to and engaging with the community to shape what the legislative priorities would be going into 2021.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Maya, what would you do?
So I think it's a phenomenal question, Gene. Going through this process, and I ran in Texas Senate District 6 last year in December, one of the things I loved most about this was engaging with constituents. And I know I make the statement that I'm a constituent first, but I don't think you can really speak on behalf of constituents unless you holistically know what their needs really are. So whether it's monthly town halls, quarterly meetings, I want to immediately set up community task force. I'm a part of an entity called the GLBT Political Caucus. I'm also a part of an entity, the Texas Organizing Project. And so, Chris has mentioned Lambda Legal. So there's all these different entities that are doing really great and good. I've done things with the Anti-Defamation League. I want them all pulled together across the district. And I want us to be building relationships and sharing tools and making sure that we have all voices at the table across all intersections. I chose in this campaign not to take PAC money unless it aligned with an intersection because of one reason. I want to be beholden to no one except my constituents. I will be beholden to the constituents of House District 148, and that's what I would do in my first year.
Thank you very much. Penny, what about you?
I echo what my colleagues have said about working in district. Yes, we have to engage with our civic clubs, we have to engage with all of our grassroots organizations, and certainly meet with our seasoned elected officials. But I also want to engage seriously with students, because I think the students are understanding their power and their vote and their voice, and I think we have to really listen attentively to them. But there is no shortage of work in the interim for a legislature. We have two very huge issues right in front of us, and that's redistricting and the census. So that's something that we have to get started on right away. Redistricting includes public hearings, public input, the committees, to make sure that we have the things that it's going to take to have fair representation, fair counting in the census, that's going to take a lot of work. And I think those are the two biggest things that I want to focus on, aside from the in-district work.
Okay, thank you very much. Chris, how about you?
Gene, I'm going to do 4 things. First, I'm not yet convinced that this is going to be an off year. I'm going to add my voice to the voice of so many other Democratic elected officials in calling on a special session on gun violence from Governor Abbott. Second, just like everybody else has talked about, I'm going to be out in the district. I need to continue to learn and talk to the residents of District 148 so that I can be the best representative for them when I go to Austin. Third, I'm going to start reaching out to all my colleagues, Republican and Democrat, because those relationships are going to be critical when we do gavel back in 2021 to make sure we've built those relationships. We can actually get some things done for the people of Texas. And lastly, I'm going to be on the campaign trail, not only for me, but for fellow Democrats who are out there fighting to win a majority in the Texas House of Representatives. I'm convinced we can do it. It's 9 more seats. We're going to get those 9 seats so that when redistricting does come up in 2021, we'll be the ones drawing the map. So that's what I'm going to do in between now and 2021.
Thank you very much. Anna, what about you? What are you going to do in this gap year?
It's hard to be number 9 out of a group of 10 and come up with something original. I think I'm going to take up where Chris left off and say, besides running for office 2 more times, which I would use that to take advantage to continue to engage with voters, I would also be calling with the fellow Democratic colleagues for a special session to address gun violence. We have the momentum, we have the opportunity, and there is no reason why we can't do that work now. I love people, I love my community, and that means this entire district. I love being out in the public, so in addition to formal meetings and events to hear from people, I will just be on the ground, whether it's walking on the bike path, riding my bike up through the western part of the district, or riding the metro through the near north side, engaging with voters and listening and hearing from them about the things that really matter. And then I would be building relationships with the other people that I'd be working with in Austin to make sure we can actually get the legislation passed in the next session.
Thank you very much. And finally, talking about being number 9, number 10, Chris, what would you do?
I thought I was going to be original, but my man right here, he got to it first. I want to shake his hand, though, because he said what a lot of people won't say, and Anna said the same thing. You're going to be campaigning. Everybody in this room is going to be campaigning. You have to get through a primary. You have to get through a general. So to say you're going to do all these other things, you're going, but your first focus is going to be campaigning over the next year. But like these two said, the biggest thing we have to do is we have to demand a special session. Mm-hmm. Going into this special election, it's not enough to say, oh, we're just going to sit tight and do these meetings and go to committee meetings and hearings in the interim. No, we have to stand firm. And I think we have the governor's ear right now, as well as the lieutenant governor's ear. We have to demand action on these mass shootings and this mass violence. It's not going to stop anytime soon unless we act now. So whoever's elected, and hopefully it's me, we will demand that action. We will demand a special session, and we will take action to make sure we are protecting the families, the neighborhoods, and the community that we look to serve. The other thing is we also can put in that special session is flooding and infrastructure. We have to hold municipalities accountable when they are receiving funds from the state government, and the city of Houston is just not doing that.
Thank you very much. Final question, and we've got about a minute left for each one of you. Tell us, if people want to learn more about you, where can they go to find out about your campaign? And also the most pressing question, why are you the best candidate for District 148?
Well, you can always find me at chriscarmona.com or any handle social media at Carmona for Texas, chriscarmona.com, or you can catch me Saturdays on 9:50 a.m. KPRC from 1 to 3 p.m. I mean, we have a radio show. So you can always call in and voice your concerns or argue or yell at me, whatever you want to do. But the thing that makes me stand out in this race is because I have taken a bold statement and a bold step of declaring that both parties have failed the District of 148. Republicans because they can never carry the right message to get people in the district to accept them. Democrats because they've allowed a stagnant representative to allow them to represent this district for the last 25 years, and we still have the highest poverty rate in the state, failing school systems, infrastructure is failing. It's a mess. So I'm the only one who's bold enough to step out and say both party systems are failing us, But at the same time, I have great relationships with both people on both sides. And going into a legislative session, you have to have those relationships. You have to be able to go on both sides and not just be so standoffish to everyone, and to be able to get things done. And because I've built those relationships working in session and out of session, I think I'm in a unique position to be able to benefit this district more than anyone else. Thank you. ChrisCarmona.com.
Anna?
I'm Anna Eastman. You can find me at voteannaeastman.com. It's Vote Anna Eastman on Facebook and on Instagram, and on Twitter it's at Anna E for 148. That's ANNAEFOR 148. I believe I'm the best person for you to elect to fill this position because I have a track record as an authentic, accessible, elected trustee for a large part of this district, and I believe I can go to Austin, I can represent you, and I can get things done that matter for District 148. It's Anna Eastman for 148. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, why should we vote for you?
Thanks, Gene. Folks, if you had been able to see, as we were talking about issues tonight, if you had a wide shot, you would have seen a lot of us nodding our heads because we're largely in agreement on what's important and what needs to be done to help the District 148 and the people of Texas. So the question you have to ask yourself is, who is the candidate that is most capable? Who is the candidate that can go to Austin and reach across the aisle to get things done? I've had experience doing that. I've done that in session. I'm that candidate. The other thing you need to think about is sometimes being a good state rep is not about passing legislation. It's about preventing bad legislation from getting to the floor, from seeing a vote. We've seen women's reproductive rights erode. We've seen the limited gun laws we have on the books erode because bad legislation got to the floor. You need the candidate who's going to be able to be up there and be strategic to keep that stuff from happening. I'm that candidate. So that's why I think I'm the best representative for District 148. You can find us at wattfortexas.com. It's WATTFOR Texas.com, and that's our handle on all social media as well. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you. Penny, why should we vote for you, and how can we find out more about your campaign?
Sure. I have a resume that matches the job. I have earned the prestigious endorsement of the Greater Heights Democrats, the Texas Organizing Project, and the Tejano Democrats, who are seasoned, well-rooted in our community groups and who have vetted the candidates. But it's not just the experience, I think, that gained me those endorsements. In my legal background, the work I did in Washington, D.C. to pass IVAWA, the International Violence Against Women Act, children's access to early childhood education, women's access to maternal health care, but also the local work I've done to make sure that we have adequate flood money and that it's spent equitably and comprehensively and preventively to the future, and also on criminal justice reform and with Moms Demand Action for gun sense laws. My job as your legislature, is to make sure that our government continues to become people-centric, because that's what this is about. I see my time's up.
Thank you. Maya, it's your turn.
So in regards to this race, I'll say this. By trade, I'm a talent acquisition specialist. So what I do for a living is I take the objectives of businesses and align them with what we call human capital. My firm and myself focuses on building performance teams. This is the way I want you to think about voting in this next vote on Tuesday, November 5th. You are building a performance team. What's important to understand about a performance team is that a performance team works towards goals and objectives for X. You are the X. And so I want to be an individual that represents all voices in this district, champions equity through mitigating privilege in this district. When you go to vote on Tuesday, November 5th, I want you to ask yourself this question. Who is the performance team person that I want to add to the team that's going to move my issues and my family forward? I want to be that voice. I want to be that strong voice. There's not a fight I'm ever going to back down from. And at the end of the day, I stand on the principles of being authentic, transparent, and accountable. That's why I don't consider myself a traditional politician. I am a constituent first. You can find me at Maya Mundy, that's MIAMUNDYFORTX.com. All the handles are at MIAMUNDYTX. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you. Michele?
Thank you. You know, I really believe that both diversity of background and diversity of experience are very important in thinking about who is the most qualified person to serve this district. And as a Latina who has lived in varying parts of the district and has deep familial ties to varying parts of the district, I feel that I am able to understand the very broad and diverse constituencies that make up House District 148. I also have legislative experience working in both the Texas House and the Texas Senate, as well as doing legislative advocacy work around access to healthcare issues, and a long track record of serving the community through nonprofit sector work and volunteerism. And I think that's also really important in addressing the constituent services needs of the district. You can learn more about my campaign at Leal for FOR148.com, and you can also follow me on social media at Leal for 148. Thank you.
Thank you. Terah, why should we vote for you?
I'm a proctologist, and I have a lot of experience in bleep holes and getting things done. We need to go over to Austin, and we need to know how to get things done for this district, and I am your person. We need a strong voice for healthcare. We are at a crisis in this state. There is not a female physician in the Texas House. There's never been a female Texas House physician, and we need to change that. It just has to happen for our kids, our families, our health, everything. You can learn more about me at doctx148.com and on Facebook, Facegram, and Instagram as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Carol?
Well, you can find out more about my campaign at caroldensonfortexas.org. You can also reach me. My email is caroldensonfortexas@gmail, and on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, it's Carol Denson, FORTEXAS. Why you should vote for me? Because I actually know a lot about the most important issue, which is the effects of rising greenhouse gas emissions and climate change. And I know so much about that issue because I have worked for 7 years in a bipartisan organization that works to find common ground and shared values to solve this climate crisis. Other than that, I also am a teacher, and so I know how to work really hard. I know how to build relationships. I know how to think strategically. And I think that's it. I'm a teacher. I love the community. My heart is here. Even when I've lived other places, I've always called this area the center of my universe. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob Block.
So I'm Rob Block. You can find out more about my campaign at block4texas, FOR.com, and on Block for Texas on Facebook and on Twitter. So I think that diverse sort of background that I have makes me a really strong candidate. I've been an activist. I've been a community organizer in this district. I've been a social worker, was a legislative intern with Representative Farrar in 2015, and currently as a firefighter, I respond to folks that are facing their worst events on their worst days. Living in the near north side, it's a neighborhood that really faces a lot of the worst policies coming out of Austin, from attacks on immigrants with SB 4, low wages, housing instability, a plan to widen I-45 that's going to have very detrimental impacts on our neighborhood. And I have the support of unions, community voices for public education, civic clubs, and activists across the district who recognize my ability to organize and amplify the voices of marginalized communities, because that's something that they do every day. So I'd appreciate your support. blockfortexas.com.
Thank you. Finally, Adrian Garcia.
Hi. I am a strong believer that we need a leader that looks like you, that understands the needs of the communities, and that's been in the trenches in your backyard. My name is Adrian Garcia. My campaign is a people-powered movement. We are running and staying afloat on small donations. Our district has been a pillar for progressive legislation, and my promise to you is to continue that work. I will not work for anyone else other than the people. And if you want to learn more about my campaign, go to adrianfortexas.com and at Adrian Garcia TX across all boards and on social media. Again, I hope to earn your support this November 5th. My name is Adrian Garcia. Buenas noches.
Thank you very much. And for answering these questions, I want to remind everybody that this will be on YouTube in a few days, and you'll be able to see it on lwvhouston.org. That's the League of Women Voters of the Houston area's website. And you'll also be able to go there to find our handy-dandy voter's guide to learn a little bit more about how to vote, questions you may have, or vote411.org. For the League of Women Voters of the Houston area, thank you very much for joining us on Conversations with the Candidates on Houston Media Source TV. Good night.